and a 1-minute closing statement. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question that I pose. The order for making statements and answering questions was determined by a drawing prior to the forum. We have timekeepers tonight, and I'd like to introduce them. We have Dr. Sledge, and we have Teresa O'Bannon. When you have 30 seconds remaining, the timekeeper will hold up a card. When you have 15 seconds remaining, the timekeeper will show you a card. When you have 0 seconds, the timekeeper will show a stop sign. Of course, you don't have to use your whole entire 90 seconds. We'll close the forum with a 1-minute closing statement from each candidate as well. Okay, the first question. Mr. Cowell, what 3 changes will you propose or support that you believe could really make a substantial difference in your school district?
What 3 changes of support?
Mike.
Yes. What 3 changes will you support that you believe could really make a substantial difference in your school district?
First of all, I hardly ever used a microphone as a principal. Is it on? So I'm not used to using a microphone because we never had
Turn it
one.
on.
We never had one that worked. What 3 changes
Turn it on.
of support I would make in my district? The 3 changes, first of all, I think there's a lot of things that need to be,
Here?
need to continue to be.
They can't hear.
reviewed.
I'm sorry, they can't hear. Can you turn, will that work?
Can you hear me?
And those individuals in the back, can you all hear it?
Would you have,
Just try to do a mic check.
Okay, can you restart my time then?
Yes. Can the individuals in the back, can you all hear him? I'm just trying to get a response, yes or no? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Are we starting with questions or closing statements?
I'm sorry, yes. Opening statement.
Okay, you want me to start with the opening
Yes,
statement?
yes. Right.
That's
Opening
okay.
statement.
That's okay. My name is Sam, Sam Cowan, Samuel Cowan. I'm a retired principal. I've spent almost 30 years in public education. And I've devoted my whole life to helping children and helping communities and helping parents. I retired from JCPS. My last official school was Gilmore Lane Elementary, and I'm running for the board because I'm not ready to throw in the towel and give up the fight for education and for JCPS and for Jefferson County Schools.
Thank you. Mr. Craig.
And can everybody hear me? I'm an attorney, I've got a loud voice, I'm sure everybody.
hold it close.
My name is James Craig, I'm the incumbent on the Board of Education. I was first elected in 2018. I've got 2 kids who are in JCPS. I've got a freshman at Eastern High School. I've got a 4th grader at Middletown Elementary. I've always said that the Craig family has had a tremendously positive experience inside of JCPS, and I want the families of every student across the district to have that same experience. We've done some big things in the district over the last 4 years that I'm really proud of. I want to build on those accomplishments, and I hope to be able to discuss them tonight. I'm proud to have the endorsements of our teachers in JCPS via Better Schools Kentucky, the Fairness Campaign, the Greater Local Association of Realtors, and to my knowledge, every single organization that has made an endorsement in this race besides the Tea Party, which Mr. Ullman claims as an endorsement. Look forward to speaking with you tonight.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ullum, your opening statement.
Hi, my name is Steve Ullum. I'm a single dad of a soon-to-be 12-year-old little girl. I've been involved in the past as a volunteer through JCPS. I've been on the SBDM Council, PTA Vice President. You know, kids have always just been a passion of mine, and I'm running because I want to make sure that every student has the right to the best quality education in an environment that's safe for our students, teachers, and the rest of the staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Alderman.
Hi, I'm Gay Perry Allen, and graduate from JCPS from 2016. He graduated from the Academy at Shawnee, and he is now a Marine pilot after completing 4 years at the U.S. Naval Academy. So he's a success story due to the aviation magnet that we have here at JCPS. I am running because there has been a change in the climate, and our situation has now grown dire. I have been a community organizer, a PTA mom, an SBDM member. I started a PTA at Shawnee, and I have been endorsed by an organization that is national. It is the Network for Public Education, and it was founded by Diane Ravitch. You may know who she is. You'll discover throughout tonight why I was not endorsed by some of the local organizations. And I did vote for James 4 years ago, and I helped run his campaign. And I'm running to make sure that we get the job done, not just build on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first question, Mr. Howland,
Yes.
what 3 changes will you propose or support that you believe could really make a substantial difference in your school district?
All right, the 3 changes, I don't know if they're changes. I think JCPS is doing some things very well, and some things that need to be monitored and tweaked. One of the things that's top on my list is teacher shortages, substitutes shortages. As a retired principal who only retired as of January the 1st, I know this all too well. I know that there are really good solutions out there because I was a practitioner, and I know that they exist, and I can help with those. Also, the reading and math deficits according to MAP skills that have recently come back that I've been able to look at. We are continuing to have deficits in reading and math across the board, all across the county, and I feel like I can bring a lot to the table as a practitioner as well, especially recently from the field. And then also monitoring the student assignment plan, the new student assignment plan, making sure we're asking the right questions, making sure we're monitoring it, and making sure we're not yes men or women on the board. Making sure that it does what it says it's going to do, and making sure that we monitor it and ask the right questions to the right people. Because a lot of times the board doesn't know some of the things to ask. And as a practitioner and someone who's recently retired, I know how that plays out too well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Craig, what 3 changes will you propose or support that you believe could really make a substantial difference in your school district?
I want to build on 3 changes that we've already made. Mr. Cowan already references the student assignment plan that I was proud to be a vital part of and voted for. Making sure that that is implemented with fidelity is something that I have said from the beginning is one of the reasons why I'm running for re-election to the school board. Making sure that it works. It's not going to work unless it's the people who are operating it are doing it correctly, as Mr. Cowan notes, but also that the resources that we have promised to the schools that we are developing in our choice zone are actually received by those schools. And safeguarding and making sure that the rails that we put around that plan, when we voted for it on June 1st of 2022 of this year, making sure that that happens has to be one of the biggest priorities for the district going forward. Safety is one of the biggest issues in the district right now and is top of mind. We finally built community consensus around a school safety plan that was approved in January of this year and is being implemented for the first time. Beginning with this school year, we're hiring officers that are trained by the district, that are employees of the district, and that are accountable to the district to make sure that our students are safe inside of the buildings. And then continuing on our facilities plan, I have already voted to build 7 new schools in the district. We're going to unveil a plan at the next facilities meeting for another 10 over the next 10 years. And making sure that those things happen are why I'm back again. Thank you.
Mr. Ullum, what 3 changes will you propose or support that you believe could really make a substantial difference in your school district?
Well, I believe if we start with just basic discipline, it's gonna change a whole lot of things for the better. Talking to teachers, bus drivers, substitutes, cafeteria workers, the #1 issue that they're facing is discipline and poor student behavior. Discipline policies, even as extreme as what to do in the event of a gun being on campus, are not being followed 100% of the time. Such is the case that happened at Iroquois High School last October, where the gun was simply sent home and police were not notified for 2 hours. It's unacceptable. When you have policies like that that are not being followed, it trickles downhill. Behavior's out of control. It is the #1 cause from teachers I've spoken to that's causing the shortage of teachers and bus drivers. I also believe we need armed SROs in our schools. We've had a record-breaking number of guns in our schools, and it's not working the way it is right now. So for the safety of our students, our staff, our teachers, SROs in the schools, bus monitors on the buses to help relieve the stress of the staff. And finally, I want to see a focus on the fundamentals: reading, writing, mathematics. We are at all-time record funding levels, but all-time lows for student academic performance. And that's just time that changes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Alderman, same question. What 3 changes will you propose or support that you believe could really make a substantial difference in your school district?
So, the first thing that I would like to really tackle, because it's going to be a long-term statewide project, is reach out to school board members across the state that run their elections that support the keeping public education public and not allowing charters and vouchers and privatizers to come in. And then using those networks to create another CARA. We had CARA 30 years ago, and we can do it again. The legislature has recently stripped away a lot of the things that CARA was intended to do, and we can do that. We can bring it back and make it better. We can bring back power for site-based decision-making councils and bring back local control. So that would be the first thing. We have to address root cause issues and do what we can to stop the exodus of teachers. And the teachers I talk to tell me that discipline is not the issue. It's lawmakers and leaders not listening. They've been telling us for decades what they need. Families have been telling us for decades. Students have been telling us, and we're not listening. Our leaders are not listening. So we have to solve the problems by addressing root cause issues, and that includes an audit. We need audits of the district's internal investigation processes as well as outside organizations. And then the last thing is to stop the predators that are coming in from the outside that have ties to white nationalism and extreme radical views. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ullum, the school choice plan creates an opportunity for students in the urban core to attend schools in their district, which include wraparound services, including magnet schools. What provision do you support, and which ones would you work to change?
I think the student assignment plan was a really good start. I think it addressed a core issue in an area of town that really needed to be addressed. I don't think any student deserves to be shipped 40 minutes across the county to go to school. So I think it's right that every student has the option of attending school in their home district. I would also like to see that carried on countywide. I'd like to see everybody, especially at the high school level, as they're preparing to go to college or their field of their choice, I think every student should have choices. I don't like the wording of the plan. I don't like the implication that the school assignment plan is a plan of choice. For middle and elementary school, for middle and high school elsewhere in the district, it's not a choice. You go to your reside school. And if you do not want to go to your reside school, you can fill out an application and the district decides. So I think the wording of that is incorrect. I don't like the fact that students cannot be exited from magnet programs. I believe that student behavior and performance is key. There ought to be a reason for students who continue to disrupt the school or put others in dangerous situations to be exited from schools. So those are the primary changes I would make.
Mr. Powell, same question. The school choice plan creates an opportunity for students in the urban core to attend schools in their district with improved wraparound services, including magnet schools. What provisions do you support, and which ones would you work to change?
I do. I also was in support of the new student assignment plan. I'm worried. Louisville is a very segregated town, and physically, absolutely. And I'm worried that the plan may continue to promote that in some ways with communities, with choices for community schools. I want to really watch that and monitor it. That's the part that worries me, and I think that's just time is gonna tell. And I think it's important to really watch that and see where that goes. I'm a little bit concerned also about teachers not being involved in the exit process or having at least a say in exit process. I was in a magnet school as an administrator, and I know we did not exit children lightly. We hardly exited a child at all. But when we did, it was very appropriate. And teachers were sitting at the table. And I think if you remove teachers from sitting at that table, there are consequences.
Thank you very much. Ms. Alderman, same question. The school choice plan creates an opportunity for students in the urban core to attend schools in their district with improved wraparound services, including magnet schools. What provisions do you support, and which ones would you work to change?
So, thank you for that question. My background initially getting into advocacy work was surrounded by the student assignment plan. I was one of the early outspoken advocates for a revisit of the plan. I was pleased to see that we got some movement on getting the plan at least revisited, but we spoke frequently at board meetings and even held the district leaders accountable when they tried to pass the tax increase with a blank check to get commitments. To get commitments from them as to how the money would be spent. And they shut us out. They shut us out of meetings. We are simply concerned stakeholders who wanted to have our voices heard during a pandemic. And so I support the student assignment plan changes, but we feel it doesn't go far enough. We brought them ideas such as, in addition to the dual resides for all, I'm not sure what's going on with my battery may be low. In addition to the dual resides, I'll just set it down if that's right, because it's distracting, I'm sorry. We want to see them flip the script. We want to see the families in this part of town, and I know this is probably not good for my campaign, but our families in West Louisville have shouldered the burden of diverse schools for far too long. And it's only time that we make it equitable for everyone in our district. And so by making the schools in West Louisville stronger and more attractive and really focusing on the magnetic piece that drew us from East Louisville to Shawnee, I was able to try to help recruit people for the school and promote and market the school to help us change our test scores. I've run out of time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Craig? Yes.
Excuse me, I need to have that. I'm going to go see if I can get this
Thank
fixed
you, I'm
because
sorry.
Maybe
you
if
need to hear what you're saying.
maybe standing up would help.
I can project. Can everybody hear me in the back row? Thank you, and I can scream louder if necessary. I spent the first 3.5 years of my time on the Board of Education working on the student assignment plan. It was vetted through community groups. There were thousands and thousands of pages of community feedback. I've got binders of this feedback in my desk that we received as we went through this process over a 3.5 year term. It is a seismic change in the district. We have not changed the way that we assign kids to high schools or middle schools since 1984. That is terrible. But I also don't want to find ourselves in a position going forward where we're changing it every single year. The district needs time to heal, in my opinion, after years of tumult with COVID, with the big changes that we have made to the district, to see if they actually do work. So monitoring it and ensuring that it is implemented with fidelity has to be the most important job that the next Board of Education has with respect to the student assignment plan. Two more quick things. We baked into the plan an annual audit. So we're giving annual reports to the community about how well it worked. I cannot wait to see the first time that we do that. A concern I do have is it's going to have a significant impact on the populations of the 3 middle schools in the East End, Cameron, Crosby, and Westport Middle School. There's a chance that at some of those schools, 25 to a third of the population chooses the school that is closest to them. That's wonderful, but we're also going to need to watch the impact that it has on the rest of the schools throughout the district to ensure that those schools are protected as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ullum, what policies and training programs would you recommend to address bullying, fighting, and violence to ensure the safety of all students?
I think a lot of that can be addressed with the right kind of professional development for teachers. Again, I've spoken to a lot of school staff, and most of them, quite frankly, just do not know how to handle the situation when it comes up. I think when we start the school year, I'll steal a tidbit from Charlie Bell of District 1, a lot of people have. I think we need to spend the first couple weeks teaching students how to behave. Students are taught everything else. They're taught how to read, they're taught how to write, they're taught how to do math. They need to be taught how to behave when they're in school. They need to be taught how to avoid escalating a situation. But teachers need to have the support as well. You can't expect a teacher to know how to de-escalate every situation that happens in class. They need regular training, regular support to know how to do these things. And they need to know that they have the support of the school administration when these things occur.
Thank you. Mr. Conway, same question. What policies and training programs would you recommend to address bullying, fighting, and violence to ensure the safety of all students?
Okay, I'm gonna stand because I have a more quiet voice, okay? So anyway, it works now? Okay, well, I'll still stand since I need to stand because I had surgery on my foot. So anyway, I would continue the use of restorative practices in our schools, positive discipline, PBIS systems, which are all currently in place. Teachers are all trained. Teachers are teaching behavior all year long. I, as a principal, taught behavior all year long to children. I've been a principal of elementary school all of my life. In the last 2.5 years, I was the principal of early childhood. So we were teaching behavior from the first day until the last day. And so we are constantly with PBIS systems teaching children behavior. We teach bus behavior. We teach behavior. The problem is in my opinion, is the accountability of just a small handful of students, student behavior. It's not the student, it's behavior, it's just the child. But there is, it's just, and their behavior just disrupts the learning process of their own and of everybody else in the classroom. And the teacher, it's so severe, the teacher can't hardly handle it. And then we have people coming in. We just need a quicker response and a quicker way to get assistance for these children, because it takes weeks sometimes to get them help. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alderman, same question. What policies and training programs would you recommend to address bullying, fighting, and violence to ensure the safety of all students?
Thank you for that question. Let me just start by saying that I've been listening to the panel answer that question, and I've been writing down some words that are a little bit triggering for me, actually, just because of the work that I do and how intense it's gotten lately. But I hear a lot of policing and monitoring language. I don't know if anybody else is picking up on that. And when we talk about addressing behavior, maybe it's because I'm a mom, but I don't think policing our children into behavior is nurturing and what's best for a learning environment. And so I hear those words and they kind of make me uncomfortable, and it feels a lot like bullying, honestly. I think we create a culture when we try to over-police, we create a culture that is top-down bullying, and it starts with the administration. There's a lot of bullying going on at the administrative level that comes in at the assistant super level, they come in at the principal level, and then that gets passed down. And then so as far as policies go, we actually did the work. We have a group, I started a group called Dear JCPS, in 2015, and a few years ago, we started a group called Dear JCPS Teachable Moments, because what we found was there was a gap between when an incident might have happened at the school level where there was bullying taking place, and then there becomes this grievance against the person, and then it's who said what and when, and all the evidence gets rewritten and manufactured, and investigations get tainted. So we actually created a program and presented it to the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, same question. What policies and training programs would you recommend to address bullying, fighting, and violence to ensure the safety of all students?
Sure, and I'm looking at my wife, Jacqueline Craig, out in the audience, who is the Vice President at 7 counties for school-based and at-home youth services. I've learned through this relationship that relationships with adults is the way to overcome this solution. So Mr. Olam harps on guns that we find in schools. The reason that we find the guns in schools for the most part is because there's a trusted relationship between a student and an adult in the building, and that information is delivered, and we are safely able to de-escalate what might be a bad situation. Couple of other ideas. In the first several months that I was on the Board of Education in 2019, we increased the number of mental health professionals in our buildings significantly. We promised at least one in every building. We haven't been able to meet that because of funding so far. There's Senate Bill 1, you hear about it all the time in public education space, passed in 2018. There was a promise that JCPS would be funded by the state legislature to hire one mental health professional for every 250 students throughout the district. That's never happened. So my daughter's school, Middletown, shares a mental health professional with Chancey Elementary right now. That's about 1,000 kids sharing one mental health professional. We need to be able to get resources to these kids to de-escalate what's happening in their life so that we can meet them at the desks in the classrooms.
Thank you very much. Mr. Oliver, how can you teach about controversial and painful historical facts in order for students to critically evaluate issues of our past and present history and participate in the future of America?
Say that one more time, please.
How can you teach about controversial and painful historical facts in order for students to critically evaluate issues of our past, our present history, and participate in the future of America?
Excuse me. I think when teaching kids about the mistakes of our past, the things that we've done poorly, the hate that we've, dealt out to, people all throughout history, I think it's important that we be very blunt with them, that we be very blunt about why it was wrong, why hate of any kind is wrong. Not that it just hurts the people that hate is being directed toward, but it hurts people for generations to come. I think students ought to be informed about all sides of any topic that has any controversy to it at all. I think students need to learn how to critically think for themselves, how to research the facts for themselves, how to hear both sides of an argument, how to enter into healthy debate on these topics, and then how to be able to form opinions for themselves. We all know the things that we've done right. We all know the things that we've done wrong. I don't want to teach our kids to hate our country because of the mistakes that we've made. I want them to learn from it and learn why it was a mistake and why we can't keep going forward, because we've all seen the implications of the hate. They last for decades, and it's not a quick fix. But students need to be empowered with the knowledge to take a stand for themselves.
Thank you very much. Ms. Alderman, same question. How can you teach about controversial and painful historical facts in order for students to critically evaluate issues of our past and present history and participate in the future of America?
I think we absolutely must. I'm not sure if it's a how as to whether or not we should, and we absolutely must. But thank you for what you said, Steve. I think that you said exactly what we've been saying. This is all we've been saying all along. And so I find it a little bit confusing but yet refreshing and reassuring that you're saying these things, because previously the people that have been showing up at our school board meetings that have been saying they're against the teaching of accurate history because they're objecting to CRT legislation, that's who we're trying to bring it around to help them understand that we have to have these conversations, because I wrote down a few words, if you don't mind, about, that you use. We do have to be blunt. We have to teach about our past and about the hate so we don't do it again. We have to tell all sides. Our curriculum is very heavily Eurocentric right now. We have to make sure that our curriculum matches the population, not only of our district, but of our society at large. And when he said we all know, do we? Do we all know? I'm finding that we don't. I learn something new every day. I talk to my friends, I hear what they've learned, I watch the documentaries. I can't believe I had to learn some of this in school, and I went to a pretty good school that didn't try to hide the truth. I learned a lot of it, I thought, and it turns out there's so much more. So this has been lasting more than decades. For some of our families, it's been lasting generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, same question. How can you teach about controversial and painful historical facts in order for students to critically evaluate issues of our past and present history and participate in the future of America?
How we do it is by acknowledging the truth and acknowledging the circumstances of our students' lives. It happened before I joined the board, but in 2018, the Board of Education passed a racial equity policy, which states very bluntly, very clearly, that we acknowledge our accurate history, that we acknowledge the impact that that history has had on a significant portion of the students attending Jefferson County Public Schools, and that we are going to work to correct it. Over the course of my first 6 months on the board, we worked to implement procedures to bring that policy to fruition, and the Board of Education, in conjunction with our DEP department and our superintendent, came up with several good ideas that we're trying to do. We're providing accurate text to our students. We're making sure that our students are represented in the curriculum. We're making sure that our students are represented in the books that they check out of libraries. We're making sure that all that happens regardless of whether or not you're a black student, a brown student, a white student, or an LGBTQ student. And we have to continue to do that, and we have to continue to defend it. And we are on the right track, in my opinion, with that when we were suddenly blindsided by this bizarre CRT national craze that Mr. Oldham's supporters embrace wholeheartedly, and I'm sure you'll hear them in the same room on Thursday night scream and yell about it if they engage and conduct themselves with the same behaviors that they have the 3 prior Burger uniforms. Come back if you want to see what they're trying to actually do to this district. We have to make sure that our students see themselves in the curriculum and that they see themselves in the classroom, and I'm going to fight to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Mr. Howard, same question. How can you teach about controversial and painful historical facts in order for students to critically evaluate issues of our past and present history and participate in the future of America?
Okay, the question is, how can you teach? Okay, so I think that's very much a practice question. Although I think I do want to say that the district is doing some great things like equity walkthroughs, 2 a year for each school. So I want to bring that in just administratively. However, how do you teach? So I've been trained in thinking strategies, Socratic circles, all from Colorado. I always got my teachers trained in those things. You teach children how to think critically in the classroom. That's how you do it. You teach them how to talk about the issues and how to address the issues using all the materials that are provided, like Mr. Craig said. But that's where the process lies, is getting teachers trained in PBIS and in thinking strategies, and making sure teachers know how to do Socratic circles, which is so, students love it, and it's so beneficial from kindergarten, well, heck, in early childhood, all the way to college. That technique is mind-blowing for children, and they come up with it themselves. It's fabulous.
Thank you very much. Mr. Craig, what JCPS accomplishments and programs can our community point to with pride?
We're the stopgap for the majority of the district. We're the stopgap for the majority of the students in JCPS. So every single year, JCPS gets about 80% of the market share of the students that go to school in the county, from K through 12. We lose about 20% of them to the parochial systems and to the private systems. We are the ones who are providing the resources to our poorest students in Jefferson County. The statistics for this district are mind-boggling when you sit down to consider them. We have more than 7,000 homeless students attending JCPS on any given day. We have more than 12,000 English language learners inside of our district on any given day. We have more than 10,000, I see you, I know you know the stats probably better than I do, but more than 10,000 students on an IEP at any given point, at any given day throughout the district. We're providing services to these students, and in my opinion, doing as well as you can, given the realities of the world that we live in today, in a way that other institutions throughout this district are not. That's what you should expect your public schools to be doing, and those are the real challenges that we're facing inside of our classrooms.
Thank you very much. Mr. Collins, that same question. What JCPS accomplishments and programs can our community point to with pride?
Oh, I think there's many. I was a very proud principal of my school, of my schools. We had fabulous programs. I think, I was sitting here thinking and listening to Mr. Craig, and when I think of JCPS, and having been in JCPS for a long time, and in education for a long time, the thing that I get the most pride for are the teachers. The teachers in my schools did not get enough credit for standing on their heads, teaching backwards with very little. I mean, they would turn a classroom into a work of art with $100, okay? And then go through so much. I mean, it's, people say all the time, oh, it's teachers, so it's, you know, that they give a lot of, I think it's eye candy to teachers. They say, oh, you know, we need to give teachers accolades, but I've lived it. I've seen what teachers do, and it is amazing in JCPS. The teachers are, I rarely had a less than wonderful teacher, and I think that should be a very prideful thing for JCPS.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. What JCPS accomplishments and programs can our community point to with pride?
I agree with Sam, there are many. The ones that I think of are things that we did as a community together. And everything from standing up for our teachers in Frankfurt, showing up for racial justice across our district, marching for Breonna Taylor, for justice for Breonna. Things that have led to, hopefully, long-term and transformative change for our community. James mentioned that we are a stopgap, but I really think of us more as a linchpin. If the pin comes off our cart, off our wheel, we may not be the only wheel on the cart, but if one of the wheels comes off the cart won't move. And I really worry about the role that we play in making sure that we protect the entire state from the attacks that have been we've seen across the country to ban books. And we've only had, like I said, a 4-3 margin, and if our board makeup shifts anywhere in the district, we put ourselves at greater risk. So there are 4 open seats, and this is just one of them, and in all 4 seats they have what they call a Liberty Caucus candidate running. And our families have been in line waiting to have their concerns heard for a lot longer than some of the people that are here today. We need to make sure that we respect the families that have been waiting to have their concerns heard for generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Oliver, same question. What JCPS accomplishments and programs can our community point to with pride?
You know, I would have to say first and foremost, it's the teachers that we have that have stuck it out. You know, when you think of everything that they've gone through over the last several years, we've got more division in our schools than we've ever had. The year that the schools were shut down, the good ones stuck it out and battled through it. When you talk about the increased violence that we have in our schools, the skyrocketing gun cases, the declining discipline, the declining support that teachers and staff have from administration for these disciplinary measures, the fact that teachers are coming out of pocket in some cases, hundreds and hundreds of dollars every year just to provide the supplies for their students that they need. And we still have an amazing staff of teachers that stuck it out. The same can be said for our bus drivers. They are going through, unbelievable circumstances where, they're forced to get your kids to school safely and control a rowdy bus behind them, and they don't have the support to do it. They don't have anybody on that bus to help them out. And still we have a huge staff of them that stuck it out through all this, waiting and hoping that things are gonna change. So I think the staff we have is a huge testament to what the school district could be.
Thank you very much. Mr. Conway, within the student population of JCPS, there are 139 languages spoken. How will you ensure that resources are in place to address achievement gaps for these immigrants?
Well, I used to be an administrator at Brandeis Elementary, down by 28th Street, 29th. And so at Brandeis, I had lots and lots and lots of languages spoken at Brandeis. We never had enough resources at that time for all of our ELL, our language learners. So we had to we had to be pretty creative. So the question is how I would support them.
How will you ensure that resources are in place to address achievement gaps for these immigrants?
Well, I would make sure as a board member that there's monies allocated for that purpose, because I lived it at Brandeis. We didn't have enough money to adequately meet all of their needs. And we had over 25 languages in one school. And so anyway, basically we needed more funds. That's what we needed. We needed some kind of technology program to assist us. So we needed more money. And so I would make sure as a board member that there are staff members trained and that there is money allocated for program, because they need it. And programming for their parents, we leave that out so many times. Because the children start picking up very quickly the language, but their parents do not, because they're still speaking at home. So that was another thing that really lacked funding, was the needs for the parents. So I had to go outside of JCPS and work with a lot of organizations.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver, within the student population of JCPS, there are 139 languages spoken. How will you ensure that resources are in place to address achievement gaps for these immigrants?
Well, I think we're a panel of 4 and a school board of 7 that all speak English as a primary language. So I don't think we're the best ones to do that. I think we ought to have teachers and staff that work directly with the ESL program that develop these policies, that develop these tools. We need to work closely with them, whether they work as a liaison to the board or whatever role you want to put them in. I think we're the wrong people to ask. I think these students face challenges that none of us could ever possibly imagine. They're trying to learn all the same core subjects that we are, but they've got to learn English on top of that. And that's got to be an unbelievable challenge to overcome, and I don't think we're the ones that can best answer that, because we don't know the situations that they're in. We need the staff and the teachers who have gone through these things and experienced them for themselves to be the ones that are implementing these policies, procedures, and recommending the tools that the students need, because they're the ones on the front lines. They were the ESL students at one point who went through all the same things that we're trying to debate as a board. So I think whatever route we take needs to involve the staff first and foremost, and I think the board needs to be supportive of the people that go through this firsthand.
Thank you very much. Mr. Craig, that question.
We had that question in a school board debate in 2018, and I gave the exact same answer. I gave it though because I was a little unsure of myself, because I didn't know what to do. And Jacqueline was sitting next to one of my good friends, Michelle Shorey, who was an ESL teacher, a phenomenal ESL teacher in the district, and I said, I'm gonna listen to Michelle Shorey. Here's what I've learned in the last 4 years. The answer to many of these questions is bodies in the building. interactions with adults and trained adults who are competent and capable of dealing with them. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we committed ourselves to developing the revenue into the district to provide that, and then we changed the way that we budget schools. So my son's having a great year at Eastern. He's a white kid, he speaks English, he is not having the challenges that many other kids in our district are having. But when you add on layers of difficulty, like being an English language learner, or experiencing poverty or generational poverty, or systemic racism, or all the other things that can interfere with a student's life, we know that schools need resources to combat those challenges. So here's what we did. We changed the way that we budget schools based on the populations of the students inside the building. So Zachary Taylor Elementary, for example, at the corner of Westport and Hirschborn, is more than 90% non-white. It is getting many more resources now per teacher and per pupil than Dunn Elementary, for example, over there in Indian Hills. Phenomenal schools, but different needs inside of the building, and we're working hard to try to implement that. We finally have the cash from the revenue increase in hand. I want to make sure that we're implementing that promise with fidelity and we're getting the resources to those schools. One comes back.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Alderman. That question. Within the student population of JCPS, there are 139 languages spoken. How will you ensure that resources are in place to address achievement gaps for these immigrants?
Thank you for that question. The two words that caught my ear the most from that question were resources and ensure. How will we ensure resources? And let me just go on record, if no one else already has. I support legalization and taxation of cannabis to fund education. It's been done in other states, and we can learn from mistakes. We can do it and do it better. And President Biden is already talking about legalizing cannabis and changing the schedule of it. And so Kentucky needs to get caught up so that we don't get left behind. Also, I have been doing, it's not what would I do, but what have I been doing? I have been in Frankfurt. I don't remember seeing these guys in Frankfurt testifying on behalf of our schools and our students and our educators, asking for those resources, asking for them to not pass unfunded mandates. And I've also been speaking at board meetings since 2013. I advocated for the removal of Superintendent Harkins. We got rid of David Jones, who was the person who was keeping her in place. And we've been very successful, speaking of the things that we're proud of, we've been very successful in recognizing these threats and keeping them out and keeping the control of our schools local. And we need to continue to do that. So keeping our decision-making local is how we make sure that the funding gets spent where it needs to be spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alderman, take the mic back. The academies of Louisville expose students to job skills and different careers, intending to engage students in a way to keep them in school to graduate and become lifelong learning without needing remediation after graduation. What is your vision for CTE, that's career and technology education, career technical education?
Thank you very much for that question. I've been paying a little bit closer attention lately to other examples of successful school systems and how they prepare our students for lifelong learning and their careers. And Norway comes to mind. Norway is about the same size of Kentucky, and in 1990 they completely reformed their district. And I do want to compliment JCPS because the Academies of Louisville is doing the work for the CTE piece of it, but we can't operate in a vacuum. We have to have complete A to Z wrap around from beginning to end, making sure that our students don't fall through the cracks. And on the previous question, in fact, the conversation seemed to be focused on languages, but we have achievement gaps across multiple groups, and we're not going to look for solutions just for one group or another group. We have to look at root cause solutions, because that's how we're going to completely transform our district and make sure that we don't leave any child behind. We have to make sure that we do have the right people at the table. I agree with that. We also have to make sure we have the right people on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, the Academies of Louisville expose students to job skills and different careers, intending to engage students in such a way to keep them in school, to graduate, and become lifelong learning without needing remediation after graduation. What is your vision for career technical education in JCPS?
The Academies of Louisville is a feather in all of our caps, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. Mr. Olam says that we have the lowest educational outcomes right now in history. That's actually not true. In the last year, we had more students graduate from JCPS, college and career ready, than we ever have in the history of Jefferson County Public Schools. That is an accomplishment of this Board of Education, and it is an accomplishment of our superintendent, who recently received a new contract that I fought vigorously to get for him. We're doing well with the Academies of Louisville. What is my vision for its future? There's one problem with it right now. It's not universal throughout the district. There is one resides high school that I won't put on blast tonight, but that has not yet adopted the Academies of Louisville as a program, as a model, and I want to make sure that it is universal throughout the district at all of our resides high schools before I leave the Board of Education. Number two, we are working to expand it, given its success, into middle schools. So we're not going to teach 6th, 7th, and 8th graders what they're going to be doing when they graduate from high school or what they're going to be doing for the rest of their life, but we want them to have rich experiences in vocational work to figure out early on if this is something that they want to pursue, instead of throwing something at a dartboard when they're in the 9th or 10th grade. So making sure that that is implemented with fidelity and funded as well. And then making sure, and I haven't said this yet, and I want to make sure that I do, that there are moderate and mature and rational voices on the Board of Education representing this district throughout the city. Because this model, which has had some of the best success that we've had for our district, relies on the relationships of other partners throughout the city. And when we act full and we don't express ourselves as professionally as we need to, which has happened in the campaign and has happened in other places, those business partners aren't going to want to come to work with JCPS. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Powell. Same question. The Academies of Louisville expose students to job skills in different careers, intending to engage students in such a way to keep them in school, to graduate and become lifelong learning without needing a remediation after graduation. What is your vision for career technical education and JCPS?
I love the Academies of Louisville, and if you don't know much about them, or if you think you know a little bit about them or a lot about them, you need to find out even more. The Academies of Louisville is actually it's one of the pride things. It's one of the prideful things of JCPS. It is fabulous. My vision for it is to, as Mr. Craig said, make sure all high schools are on board, to bring in the middle schools. I think they have to be brought in because as a principal of elementary schools, elementary school children, we were talking about CTE, and we were talking about career education starting in 3rd grade, 4th and 5th grade. So I think middle schools have to become involved. And then those partnerships. I am no stranger to partnerships with lots of organizations and lots of businesses. I think we have to have the community's support with the Academies of Louisville to give children those unbelievable experiences so that they can graduate from JCPS and start working. Because we need them in our community and we need JCPS to fill that gap. So I would be excited to help in that work.
Thank you. Mr. Ullum. The Academies of Louisville expose students to job skills in different careers, intending to engage students in such a way to keep them in school, to graduate, and become lifelong learners without needing remediation after graduation. What is your vision for career technical education in JCPS?
Well, anything that's going to keep our kids more engaged, I think, is a positive thing. I've always been in favor of a higher focus on trades, so that when students graduate college, they can enter the workforce right away. I don't see any reason why we can't implement that as early as middle school. We've got to face it, not every student in our schools is going to go to college. Many of them are not going to be able to afford it. For many of them, it's just not something that they're going to do. They were not natural born students. Career readiness is something that should be a primary focus. We need plumbers, we need electricians. We have a shortage in almost every trade in this community. And the more we can do to educate our students and give them life experiences in one of these skills, the better prepared they're gonna be to enter the workforce as soon as they get out of high school.
Thank you very much. We now gonna have closing statements, and we're gonna start with you, Mr. Ellen.
You know, I got into this fight because, you know, kids have always been a passion of mine. I am seeing math proficiency rates as low as 36%. And that's not something that as a school district I'm proud of. I'm hearing very inflammatory statements coming from school board members. Very divisive statements being used when talking about things like curriculum, talking about the reopening of our schools. It became a very racially divisive topic. You know, things like reopening schools only benefits white people. We don't need language like that. We need to teach our kids to look at each other for who they are, not for what they look like. We need to get the politics out of our schools. We need education to be nonpartisan, and we need to let kids be kids again. We're teaching them to look at everybody and make a decision about what they think about somebody based on what they look like. And it's just wrong. We need to teach them to look internally and get to know each other for who they really are.
Thank you, Mr. Ellen. Mr. Cowan, the closing statement.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I am a retired principal. I spent a lifetime in public education. As a retiree, I do not want to give up my passion and my mission. I want to be on the board to work for children, for teachers, for my community. I would dedicate, I don't work, so I would dedicate my time and my energy to schools, to my district, to the whole school district. And as a principal, I was hardworking, I was trusted, I was loyal, and I always did what was best for kids, and I want to continue that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Craig, closing statement.
Just thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this. You did it in 18. I don't know if you're able to do it in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, but this is a wonderful resource for the community. It takes a lot of time and effort to organize, and I appreciate your efforts. And I'm glad that everybody showed up tonight. I know that many of the candidates in your other races are no-showing the League of Women Voters, which is important. So thank you for your work. I'm proud of many of the accomplishments that we've achieved on the Board of Education over the last 4 years, and I hope to continue them, and I hope to try to overcome the challenges that this district is now facing in a new world with COVID and everything else that is happening right now. I've got the support, as I said, of every organization that I know that has made an endorsement in this race locally, and I hope to be a moderate, rational, and a reasonable voice representing you on the Board of Education for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Alderman, closing statement.
Thank you, and thank you again to the league. I agree. I am a member of the league and appreciate the work that is done here. I'm late on my two, so I don't mention. It's been said, in fact, it was implied by our incumbent just now that there's been some unprofessional behavior, and I'm surprised to hear that coming from him because he apparently is afraid that he feels that he has to make up lies about me in order to win the race. And so I agree we need to act more professionally. I did post evidence of what I'm stating on my Facebook page if anyone would like to take a look at it. My petition that I did was an expression of support for the tax increase, but make sure that the community understands that I have a whole Vote Yes campaign that the district was slow to implement. We were trying to educate the community and they were tripping us up for some reason. And I have my theories, but I'm also called a radical sometimes. My time's up? Oh, I'm so sorry. I would like to explain that later. I guess you have to read the Facebook.
Thank you, Ms. Alderman, Mr. Cowan, Mr. Craig, and Mr. Ullum.